early on, I was worried about as much as you guys would talk about him and watch him at practice. I said, we could have the other 70 guys doing something else. They wouldn't even know. But when I found out this is a pretty special guy. He already came in with a very mature sense about him. He'd been through some good, strong life experiences, but it was the humility and confidence that really separated himself to be able to lead.
I loved something that Dan talked about today, in part because it's something that I've talked about quite a bit, and it was cool to hear him say it.
Number 1.
Dan talked about the competitiveness of Cliff Kingsbury, and he was asked specifically what stood out / what has stood out about working with Cliff this season. They're first together, obviously.
Coming in, I knew, kind of the background of Cliff, and, we'd known each other from a football perspective. I think I fully found out what a competitor he is. Like that, I think, is at the core of really who he is, because he comes across in a quiet demeanor externally, but this is a really driven person. And so that part of the competitive nature, like you see it sometimes in his play calling, there's some like a good anger to it at times. And so I think I found out like this is a real competitor. And so loves to attack, as we would know, but then he gets full support, and I appreciate that. So I learned, I didn't think it wasn't going to happen, but I did learn that. For somebody that sat in the chair, he's got, perspective to see things and, give insights. And so I appreciate that about him for sure.
I think it's cool for Dan to share that Cliff still does think about like the full team and the head coaching side of it. But the biggest thing when he talks about the competitiveness, there are just times in games where the Commanders' offense has been in a rut. And you can tell Cliff's like, I'm done with this. I'm done with this rut. We're not doing this anymore. I'm not just going to settle for the same old thing. And whether it's on Sunday, they couldn't get the run game going, and so he pulled out like an old air raid. We're going to go 10 personnel, 4 wide receivers, 1 tight end, or 1 running back, no tight ends. We're going to spread the field out, get all these defenders out of here, and try this running thing. Or we're going to try the quarterback trap. We're going to try this. We're going to try that. We're going to try a trick play. Like, he's just at times like, in a way that I think a lot of us who play like Madden can relate to. You just go like, I'm sick of this. I'm going to try something else. I'm going to make it happen. Except for he does it with a knowledge and an understanding and a control that actually makes it productive. And often he gets them out of those ruts. And I just really, really appreciate that about Cliff. And it is something that has shown up a ton this year. And it was cool to hear Dan say that basically exact same thing out loud.
Number 2.
Now, Cliff needs to figure out the running game. It obviously was not very good on Sunday, and here was Dan Quinn talking about why it was not very good on Sunday.
Yeah, in fact, we had that same discussion today, Nikki, and I think going into it, I even had this talk with the guys. We've got a smart crew, and so the pass protection, the blitz pickups, I think it's good. I said, I want to make sure, don't miss the aggressive part of it. Of thinking to this, what could happen here, what could happen there. Like, let's make sure we're sprinting off the ball into our contact. And so that was the message I wanted to give, because these are sharp guys. If this guy aligns here, do we want to check to this guy? I said, sometimes guys like make the mistake, make it full speed. If they do something different, that's okay. And so I want to make sure that's what we see this weekend, just that type of commitment off the ball. They're tough, they're physical. I said, don't overthink this thing, man. Like, we all have a tendency in anything to do that. Let's make sure like they feel our pads, our physicality, and that to me was as much as anything. We've got a good scheme. We know how to run. We use the quarterback. We carry out fakes. It's difficult. Don't miss the top of the pile. That's the effort and the finishing and the hitting. And so like, this is not to be taken too scientifically. Let's make sure, we follow our pads in this.
I love that from DQ, because there is a lot of good stuff in this run game. And I do think that there's some schematic stuff they probably could unwrap, but it's just hard because of Jayden. Like, when you have to factor the quarterback in, the run scheme should do enough if you execute it at a high level, and they just haven't been able to get the movement off the ball. And look, there was just bear fights between Cosme and Jalen Carter and Biotish on Sunday. Like, Jalen Carter is just absurd to try to deal with. So the good news is you don't have him. The bad news is you got a guy like Grady Jarrett who's been bear fighting people for 14 years or whatever it's been in the NFL. So it is a tall task again on Sunday, though not, I don't think, nearly as tall as it was for the Commanders against the number one defense in the league, of course, against the Eagles.
Number 3.
Of course, getting guys back helps your offense and your defense. Let's start off with Austin Eckler. Dan Quinn, is there a possibility that Austin Eckler comes back this season?
Absolutely possible. Yeah. So Austin is definitely trending in the right way. Workouts going great. He's in meetings. He's doing all the stuff with us. So we're certainly optimistic, and we'll just play the whole thing out. But like you said, this is the earliest that he could be would begin next week. But it's been encouraging to see the progress that he's made.
One, on a human level, great to hear, because holy crap, that was a scary scene when he went down in that game against Dallas on the late kickoff return. Just an absolutely, really scary thing on its face, and then his concussion history. So the fact that he's made this kind of progress, and this is even on the table, I think, is a great sign, and obviously would be very helpful for the offense if they can get him back. Now, what happens if John Allen is ready to go this week, which he very well might be? DQ asked that directly today.
Well, we're certainly looking forward to it because we know the caliber of John, what he can bring, and so anytime you can add a player of his caliber to it, pass rush, just experience also. He's strong, he's tough, so when that does happen, that'll be something that will definitely, bring energy to our defense as well, much like we, kind of added Marshawn into that space as well, where you just add guys into it. Different for John because he was here, but the same effect in a lot of ways.
I really don't know what they do because, a guy like Carl Davis has been really good. Sheldon Day's been sensational. I would guess that Davis probably stays down on the practice squad, and they just sub John Allen in, and Fedarian Mathis gets cut, and that's the end of that. And then what do they do from a package standpoint? That is really the question. They could certainly just give the Carl Davis snaps to John, and he's not going to be a starter, and they let him work in this week, and then depending on how it goes, you up his snaps significantly and make him a starter again. I also think you probably take some of Jerzon Newton's snaps away because the rookie has struggled in certain situations. It's fine. He's a rookie. He's also thrived in certain situations. So just can you better get those guys set up for success based off what they do really well? I think John Allen adding to your rotation is a great thing at this time of the year, but it is going to be a bit of a challenge to kind of figure out which pieces mix and match together. But again, a good problem to have. All right, continuing on, our pick 6 at 6.
Number 4.
Number 4, Dan Quinn also talked today about the leadership on the team, and I thought this was really, really good. It's a long quote from DQ, a long soundbite here, but there's lots of swearing. So there's Dan's birthday gift to you. We had to bleep it because otherwise we get in trouble. But DQ was asked about the leadership on this team and the approach of giving Jayden Daniels not the keys to the kingdom immediately, but making him earn it, if you will, over time.
Well, first, it's what we stand for. If we're going to have competition as the central theme of the program, then I think it would be counterproductive to say everybody else compete, but you've already got it. I think that would be the wrong message to send when you're trying to establish, some standards that you want to do as a program that's developing. It did it by his work first, and then after that, I think the moments in the game, the guys just, came to lean on him, trust on him, knowing that he does what he says he's going to do. Not to say that every, game is perfect, but they have a lot of belief in him. And I think belief's a really powerful thing because it's that bridge that goes from the gap that says wanting to win to knowing you're going to win. And that's powerful. And so I think Jayden helped that bridge where you're hopeful, you want to we're going to. And so if you've ever been on a team that you're going to, man, that feels a lot different. And so his confidence is a big part of that. And his humility is a big part of that because of all the accolades and the things and the attention that he gets, he's deferral. He doesn't do that. And I think the players recognize that as well. Early on, I was worried about as much as you guys would talk about him and watch him at practice. I said, we could have the other 70 guys doing something else. They wouldn't even know. But I also knew, I found out this is a pretty special guy. He already came in with a very mature sense about him. He'd been through some good, strong life experiences, but it was the humility and confidence that probably separated himself to be able to lead. Because I think if you do it beforehand, it's not authentic. If you anoint somebody as a leader and they're not, it's and so the players know that. These guys have been their whole life as great players coming up, and so they see through it way faster than anybody else. So if I had done that to them, they said, man, you're not real. And so I wanted to make sure that I stay consistent with that too. And so, but I also don't want to not allow him to fully develop into a leader. He is now. So there's no need for me to guard him from any of that. Like, they trust him. They have belief in him.
I love it. I love it. I love making him earn it and letting it happen naturally. It's not really making him earn it. It's just being like, hey, man, you're on the team. You don't need to do anything crazy. You don't need to call up the guys and assert your dominance early, because Bobby Wagner's going to be like, kid, you just got here. Sit down. And over the course of time, he's earned that leadership. And now he and Mikey Sanders still, Dan talked about him in a different bite, are full-fledged leaders on this team. And they're the future. And that's great. But they also know their place right now, which is probably somewhere behind Bobby Wagner. But I don't know how many other people besides Bobby and really like Terry McLaurin, maybe Zach Ertz. He's not as vocal, but Zach, how many guys are really ahead of those two, Mikey and Jayden, in line, which is part of the reason they were drafted, on top of the excellence that they were going to provide on the field.
Number 5.
Jayden drafted number 2 overall this weekend. He will square off, and the team will square off more aptly against the number 8 overall pick, Michael Penix, who Jayden trained with. You'll hear from Daniels on Penix in a moment, but first, DQ on what he saw from Michael Penix in the draft process.
I think coming into it, Candy, through the draft process, he was actually here and had a visit with us during the spring as well. You found out this is a rare competitor. We knew his path, from college to Indiana and out to UW, and he had just a fantastic year. Even though they lost, I would say the game against Michigan, where he just stood in and over, I thought, man, is this guy tough. Like, we hadn't even looked at him yet. It captured me into that spot. And so going into the whole process, you knew this was a talented guy. He could deliver, he could process quickly. And so his way of playing is different than our way of playing, where, we move Jayden a lot to do that, where Michael's more in the traditional way, strong arm, can rip it to anywhere. So those were the things, we saw in the draft process. And then limited stuff during the preseason. We saw some, and then, a full-on game last week, and you saw that arm talent and the strength come through full-on.
So there is Quinn on Penix, who will be under center for Atlanta on Sunday Night Football this weekend, preparing for this moment in the offseason with none other, or at least the draft, with none other than Jayden Daniels, who we got to know quite well. And Jayden quite enjoyed his time with Michael Penix.
He's just cool. A cool individual. One of the guys, really down to earth, humble, super funny. But for him, man, I think it kind of went viral last year, but he really likes to rap. He freestyles off the top of his head. So just being around him, basically all the last year, from before our season, started in college to pre-draft and stuff like that. So we just built that bond over that time.
Cool stuff there. So it should be fun. It's Penix's first big test. I'm excited to dive into the tape a little bit tomorrow and then preview it with Logan on Thursday on Take Command. Of course, we'll let you hear our thoughts on Michael Penix on this here show as well. And last but not least,
number 6.
Merry Christmas, everybody. It's every reporter's favorite time of year. Time to ask the quarterback what they got their offensive line for Christmas.
Some scooters. It's coming out soon. Got him some electric scooters, so I don't have to walk around as much.
Hey, that O-line, Anthony, is banged up right now. That's a practical gift. Practical gifts are overrated. You use them, which makes them good gifts.
Very good gift.
Now, Jayden's done well for himself. Good solid rookie contract, being the number 2 pick. He obviously did quite well on NIL deals in college. He hasn't made as much money as Russell Wilson in his career, though. Russ, this is what he got his offensive lineman. Adam Schefter tweeted this out. Although I should give credit to probably like Brooke Pryor and Steelers and whoever else tweeted this out. Russell Wilson gifted his offensive lineman a $10,000 Airbnb gift card that can be used anywhere around the globe, a Louis Vuitton duffel bag in Steelers colors, a custom-made Steelers Goodman brand shoes, that is Wilson's premium men's clothing brand, and then a bottle of 10-to-1 rum, which is his wife Sierra's brand.
Hey, bro, let me hold $1, bro. Like, what's up?
You want to know who the offensive lineman can thank for that?
Who?
The Denver Broncos. And Sierra and Russ, it's
Yeah. They still paying him, huh?
they paid him so much money.
Good gracious.
I mean, Seattle paid him a lot of money. Denver also paid him a lot of money. Seattle got their money's worth. Denver has an $87 million, I think it is, cap hit. And that's the Pick 6 at 6. Coming up next, Competition Wednesday. Of course, we're out tomorrow, so Competition Wednesday on a Tuesday. So Anthony and I will go head-to-head, but first let's get an update on the latest in the world of women's sports presented by Wawa. Chicken how you want it at Wawa with customizable, crispy, or roasted chicken sandwiches.